count down nicely. He always goes 5, 3, 1.
Bottom line is, he was rich and he was young. And he was a ruler, he was an influential person in the society.
Welcome to Energ-Aid, a program for young people just like you and I.
As growing up as a refugee and being able to go to school and being a doctor, you know, it was...
Wow.
Yes, possibly. How do you learn more about him if you don't doubt?
You don't doubt. Wow.
By the way, you can't even trust God if you don't doubt. Do you know that?
Welcome to Energ-Aid, a program for young people just like you and I. My name is Adela, and in today's episode, we will be looking at wealth, how to build your own wealth. In the studio today, I have Martin Mandula, who will help us understand more on this particular topic of wealth. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you.
Now, you are an engineer by profession,
Yes.
and you also have your own company now.
Yes.
What was it like, coming up with that decision to actually start your own company? Was it an easy process? How did you actually get to that decision?
Well, the decision is not usually difficult to make a decision, but sometimes are the fears of things in between. How you'll be able to do it, how you'll be able to establish your own business. I'd cherished the idea of starting my own business for a while, but the fears of this and that, you're afraid how you're going to do it, kind of draw you back. The risks of being standing on your own. But eventually I had to brave it by God's grace and through the encouragement of my wife. That no, brave it and go ahead and do it. So I went ahead and I braved it. I quit my job, established my own company, and now I've been running for the past 2 years.
Wow.
And I've employed about 3 people. So yeah, it's a team of about 4 now, and it's still growing. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, before we actually get into the whole how to build your whole wealth, let's just talk about what the Bible actually says about wealth and possessions.
Right. You see, if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, the Bible says we need to remember our God, that it is Him that gives us the power to get wealth. So God Himself is interested to give us wealth. And the Bible is actually saying it is Him who actually grants us the power to get wealth. In the same Deuteronomy 28:13, we find where God is saying, I want you to be heads and not tails. So He is not satisfied if we look for a low range. He wants us to go for the high range. But having that in mind, that it is actually Him who gives us the power to get wealth. You know, if you check in the Bible, we have men who were very wealthy and were very close to God. One of them is Abraham. Abraham had a very huge household. He had an army of close to 300 and going out to rescue Lot and all these things. So he had huge possessions. He needed all those men just to look after his possessions. We have a man, Job. If you check in Job chapter 1, verse 1 to 3, the Bible says he was the greatest man in the East. And yet it also mentions in there that he is a man who feared God and he hated evil. So the Bible does give us examples of other young people that were also rich and they were young. The example of the rich young ruler, of course, is famous for all the wrong reasons, because he was not comfortable to let go of his wealth. But bottom line is, he was rich and he was young. And he was a ruler, he was an influential person in the society. So I think it should be a lesson for the young people as well, that the Bible does give us examples of young people that were actually rich and they were young.
So there's nothing satanic about actually being rich and a Christian, because there are those beliefs that the more money you have, then probably that's coming from, the satanic world and not necessarily from God.
That position is indeed true and prevalent in the world because of, I guess, what people have seen. But the Christian should have his own stand regarding wealth, because, like I said, that the realization that it is God Himself who gives us the power to get wealth, and also the realization, like Psalm 24 verse 1 tells us, that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So everything belongs to God. And even in Psalm 50:10, where God is saying, the beasts on 1,000 hills, they are mine. Everything belongs to me. So when we know where our wealth is coming from, perhaps we are going to have a different idea Because you see, the book Education, page 137, paragraph 4, it tells us that that which lies at the foundation of business integrity and of true success is a recognition of God's ownership. The creator of all things. He is the original proprietor. We are his stewards. All that we have is a trust from him to be used according to his direction. So you quickly see that what brings the mindset that being wealthy is sin, or having a lot of money is sin, or being satanic and all these things. It's because of how that money has been gotten. Because if the money has been gotten through means that are not righteous, then yes, it's indeed to be sin in those kind of contexts. Because Proverbs 23 verse 4 says, labor not to be rich, cease from thine own wisdom. What he's saying is, don't have the mind that, you know what, I just want to be rich, I just want to make money. Because in those kind of mindsets, the outcome is not usually positive. There's a man in the secular world called 50 Cent. He sang a song, he said, get rich or die trying. His whole objective is just get rich. It doesn't matter how you get it.
Just get rich.
Just get rich. And similar in Proverbs 28 verse 20, it says, the one who makes haste to be rich shall not be innocent. Meaning that there is a process to getting wealth. You have to go through a certain discipline to understand what you need to do. You do what you need to do, and the money follows thereafter. But if you just want to rush and get rich, Proverbs 11:1 says, people are even forced to get a false balance. So you're trying to make sure that somebody who's buying 1 kilogram of sugar feels is buying 1 kilogram, but in truth is buying less than that. So you are robbing that person because you are in a haste to get rich. So money hoarded through unrighteous means, you can safely call that it is sin to be rich in that way. So the issue, I guess, should be how are the riches obtained? If they are obtained in unrighteous means, then yes, it is very sinful for you to have that wealth. In fact, Sister White calls it is a curse to get that amount of money or to be rich in that particular way.
Wow.
And just to add, it doesn't also mean that being poor is righteous. Because it shouldn't make somebody think that then in that way I'd rather be poor. Because poor, I've learned, is an acronym. P stands for people, O is who overlook, the other O is opportunities, and the R is repeatedly. So being poor, really, you're overlooking opportunities repeatedly. So for those who take advantage of the opportunities, we can be in the village, but you take advantage of the opportunities you have, that person is not poor. So riches obtained in the wrong way, that is what makes it unrighteous.
And you know, it's funny you say that, because there was actually an evangelist that also talked about how poverty by choice is actually a sin. And you know, to a lot of people that was like, no, how can you say that? But you're very right in saying so that, you know, we are also stewards, and we do have every right to actually make use of the resources that God has given us, you know, for bettering his kingdom, but also, you know, bettering other people's lives, you know. So now that we have cleared the air about riches and Satanism and all that, where can we actually begin in terms of building our own wealth? What's the first step that we can take?
We can reflect upon about 11 principles or 11 steps that need to be taken. You know, the best place to begin is from the beginning. Proverbs 3 verse 5 and 6 says you need to trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean upon your own understanding. So it says, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. So I would want to suggest that the first place to start is to start with God, to start consulting God and asking God to direct you in the path that you should take. Because you may be just attracted with a certain line that may ensnare you. But if God is put first, he is going to guide, because he knows the future. We don't know the future the way he does. The other, maybe second thing I would say is we need to start from the known to the unknown. So as a young person, whether even an old person, he's thinking of starting, you know, being his own boss or being an entrepreneur or something like that. Start with the known. What do you already know? What does Adela already know? Well, Adela knows how to sing, or she knows how to talk. What does she already know? So you already start with what you already know. This is not, it's a mistake many people make even in the early early years of their late years of their life, where he's never really gone out there to try out anything. Now he also started a business at age 79. So even for a young person, what do you already know? What skills do you have? What passions are you already having? Because making wealth is not just about doing what the average Joe is doing. God has blessed us all differently. Some have skills working with their hands. Some is intellect. Some is brilliant ideas. So maybe that's also the other place to start on ourselves. What do you already have? And the next thing maybe we may want to ask yourselves, if I take you to the example of the widow for the sons of the prophets, we find that story in 2 Kings 4 verse 1 to 7, where she was complaining she had a debt, her husband had left a debt. Now, I like the question Elisha asked her, what do you have in your house?
Yes.
So he didn't just come and say, you know what, I'll do the magic wand and you'll be okay. He wanted her to participate in the miracle. What do you already have? So God is asking me, you, or any young man out there, young woman, what do you have? Then you say to yourself. Then she had a pot and she had oil. And the man of God said, that's what I'm going to use. And he multiplied what she had. So that's where we need to start from. What we already have. The next thing is to seek godly counsel.
Okay.
Because there are people out there who are in business, but really their motives are wrong. And the way they acquire that wealth is wrong. But there are people out there who you can emulate and who you can talk to, and they give you godly counsel. Find that in Proverbs 1 verse 1, that blessed is a man that does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. So you're blessed if you don't walk in the counsel of the ungodly. And Proverbs 15:22 also talks about, without counsel, purposes are disappointed. We need counsel. The other mistake that young people make is they have an idea, they just want to go full throttle, they don't want to listen to anybody, you don't want to consult anybody, then in the process you fall. Because there are people who have treaded these paths before. And godly men, godly women who can give us counsel. Number 5 is don't be afraid to dream. You need to have a dream. You need to have a vision. Because what do you want to achieve? Proverbs 29:18 says, without a vision, people are going to perish. So you need to have, what do you want to achieve? I want to establish a media center that Malawi has never had. So you're having a vision, you're having a dream, and you're working towards that dream. Number 6, is planning and budgeting. Even Christ himself said, who among you would actually go and build a house without first sitting down and calculating how much money this project is going to need? So whatever idea it is, albeit brilliant, you need to plan and budget for it and see how best you are going to achieve it. Somebody said plans are useless, but planning is essential. Because plans may change, but it's good you've planned. The circumstances may change, but it's good you planned. Number 7, I would say you need to think big, but be ready to start small. Because there are many people who fall into a ditch and say, I cannot go out there and be an entrepreneur because I don't have money. I want to have 100 million loan so that I have instant wealth. If you have that mindset, then you're going to fall into these speed traps of corruption and all these things. So you are thinking big, but you're ready to start out small. So there's no way Adela can go ahead and sell and own a supermarket when you've never sold one tomato before. So maybe try sell 3 tomatoes and see whether you are able to sustain supplying your clients with those tomatoes. So you've started out very small with 3 tomatoes or 10 tomatoes. And then eventually, when that business grows, you eventually become a supermarket. But you don't start from a supermarket because you want to show people that you have a dream, you have a vision and all these things. So it's quite imperative to start small. Number 8, I would say, is we need to work hard. Proverbs 14:23 says, in all labor, there is profit. And Proverbs 22:29 says, if you see a man who is diligent in his business, he is not going to stand before mere men. The Bible says he is going to stand before kings. And number 9 is to learn to live within means. That means you are studying to economize. What do you have? Okay, I have this. Live within that boundary. And be content with what you have. Because you start out a business today, Adela, you cannot compare with me who started 2 years ago. So be content with where you are. Don't be saying, I've started out, I'll go get a loan, I need to be driving cars like my peers. Be content with where you are. Start out very small, and you're going to go eventually big. And number 10 is to have a mindset that you have to be free of debt. Because what brings us into problems is want to compare with other people. And Proverbs, Psalm 37:21, it says, "A wicked man borroweth and is not able to pay." And Proverbs 22:7 says, "The rich always rule over the poor. The borrower is the slave of the lender."
And that's very true.
It may be a bank. You will be a slave to those guys because you're always into the habit of just borrowing, and especially for consumption, because you want your friends to see that, oh, I heard Adela started her own company. So you want to compare with everybody. So you borrow and you borrow unnecessarily, and you find yourself in a problem. The last, perhaps but not least, is don't be a surety. There are other people who become surety for others. That, no, I know Adela. No, give her the money. If she fails, I know her. So you are the surety for her, that if something goes wrong with her, they can come to you. Now you find yourself being trapped with mistakes of other people. So there could be many other things, but I just thought perhaps just to highlight on these 11 points, that as you want to start out, these are the principles you may want to think about.
Thank you so much. And you know, most of the steps that you have actually provided are things that I have seen even my own friends struggle with. I don't think they're very easy steps to get to, but they're definitely achievable.
Right.
Now, what habits do you think we can begin adopting right now towards building our own wealth? You mentioned that, you know, borrowing as well. It's not a good habit to adopt. So I'm assuming that that could be one of the things that we need to avoid.
Right. Proverbs 31 talks about an industrious woman.
Okay.
You can be industrious even when you're a young person, even with the little that your parents have given you. I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, every time my parents would send me pocket money, I would take part of that money and give it to the certain lady who was managing the tuck shop. I said, you need to keep this money for me. So I'll be spending from the tuck shop from the money I've already given you. When that money runs out, you will let me know that, oh, young man, you only have 5 kwaja left in your account. So it managed my spending. So there are certain habits you learn and you even start practicing even from a tender age. Because what makes you money, what makes you grow, are these simple habits that you develop as a young person that they will take you to the later life. How you manage your room. You can't manage a big corporation if you can't even make your own bed. You can't even make your own shoes. I mean, there are certain things that are simple habits of diligence, simple habits of industry. Your mother has left you with a household. They've gone somewhere else. How do you manage that household? So those are simple lessons that we need to learn. But it's unfortunate that, like I said, people would want to say, no, I want to wait until I make it big. So you will just be sitting at home. You don't participate even in cooking or making the home or cleaning or anything like that. You're just getting ready to start out big and have a big corporation. That's why God says, the person who can't manage, if you can't manage somebody else's things, he can't trust you with your own. So right now, being under, if they are young people or even people who are employed, but you're under somebody else, how do you manage what you've been given, which belongs to somebody else? That would tell whether you'll be able to manage your own.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Now, there's also another question that a lot of people have when it comes to wealth and also just riches in general. Right. Does giving make us any richer, or just rich in general?
For you to give, you must have.
Yes.
And because you have, you give. And there, I'll mention 3 areas where we have to give, where it is due that we need to give. Because if God has blessed us with wealth or with resources, he expects us to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Okay. He expects us to give to God what belongs to God. He also expects us to give to our fellow man, because it's a responsibility he's granted us because of the wealth he's given us. Because if you check in Luke 6:38, it says, give, and it will come back to you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over. You see the corporations that we see out there who are very rich, who are very wealthy, and they keep moving forward. They even donate a lot of money. But they are worldly, but they are adopting biblical principles that you give and it always comes back to you. So similarly, you give to God, as Malachi 3:10 says, God is saying, give me the tithes and the offerings and see if I will not bless you. So God is simply saying, I want to see how you're going to work out your stewardship. I've blessed you with resources. Take them in the right channels. And in that way, you are going to grow yourself. But if you hoard your wealth and think, well, I've made money, I'm just going to hold it to myself, it actually becomes a curse to you. And instead of it being a blessing to you, growing in a way that other people are also benefiting, it becomes a curse to your own life.
Sure.
So you may think you're rich, you may think you have money, but if you hoard your money and not be a blessing to other people, you cannot claim this promise that give and it comes back to you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together. There are many other examples where it says there are others who keep giving and they don't seem to be running short. Those are the principles that the Bible enjoins upon us.
Wow. That's very profound. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Now, let's talk about spending, saving, and investing.
Right.
As young people, there is the belief that spending, we need to spend because, you only live once.
Yes.
Some people believe that saving is good. You need to save for retirement, save for this, save for that. But other people also suggest investing. You need to invest from a young age, or when you actually start beginning to make your own money, you need to invest.
Right.
So what's your take on these three?
Okay. Like I said earlier on, for you to spend, you must have. You can't spend that which you don't have.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I think, as I was mentioning the principles, even God himself, when you look at the Sabbath commandment, many people look upon it just focusing on the rest.
Okay.
But I want to focus something that deals with entrepreneurship in that verse. God assumes that you'll be a lord over a household. You'll be a lord over something. That's why he's saying, you should not do your work, neither your servants, nor your descendants. So he's making an assumption there that these people have blessed, they are going to have things, they're going to have people who will be under their care, they're going to have cattle, they're going to have, now then he'll be saying cattle. If you mention that commandment today, he's saying your employees, no your male employees, female employees, no your cars, no your businesses, they should rest. So that assumes in itself that God is expecting you and me to enterprise and have things under us. So
I've never thought of that.
It even enjoins that for you to even keep that commandment very well. How do you say, well, things which are under me, how are you going to say about that? So I just thought that's a worthwhile thought to keep through the mind, that as we read that commandment, let's see that God has an expectation of us, even as young people, that he's expecting you to have things under you. You're talking about spending.
Yes.
Isaiah 55 verse 2, God is asking us a few questions. Why are you busy spending money on that which is not bread? You're busy laboring for things that don't satisfy. God is saying, listen to me, and that which is good, and let your soul delight itself. Most of us, many a times, we do spend on that which is not food. Now, that's just a statement that is supposed to mean something else. We spend money on useless things. That's basically what it is saying here.
Okay.
Something which does not satisfy. If you ask yourself, if I ask myself, where does my money really go? You're going to find out it goes to paying for bundles, for social networks. It goes to buying whether things to beautify ourselves on the outside, or if you really analyze exactly what am I really spending my money on, then you really find out that in most cases than one, they're usually useless things. So God is saying, why are you busy wasting your time? Why are you busy wasting your money? You're wasting your effort. So you're working so hard, like we mentioned the principles. You've worked so hard, you're getting these things, but your spending habits can undo you, because you will find that you can find yourself in spending more than you're actually making. In truth, you can spend whatever money you want to spend. Even if I give 1 million, you can spend it. All of it can be done. And then there's somebody in the village who survives on a 5,000 for the whole month. So really, Sister White calls it spendthrift habits, where you're spending, as Isaiah 55 verse 2 is saying, on things that do not satisfy, things that are useless, things that is not food. Which brings me to the point that we need to have a culture of saving.
Okay.
And that culture of saving doesn't only start when, like I said, you are grown up, you're running a big corporation. It starts for me even now. even the 1,000 kwacha you've been given as a pocket money, how do you manage that? Because the God we serve, one thing I get impressed about God is He's a God of little things. He starts by checking our stewardship on little things. This little money you had, how did you spend it? No, I put this away first and then this, and I took out my tithe. Those are the habits, because what makes people money is not so much the money, but the habits, the skills, the discipline. That is what makes people money. Now, talking about investment, is in Proverbs 13 verse 22, God says, a good man is going to leave an inheritance to his children's children.
Yeah.
And the wealth of a sinner is laid up for the just. So God is saying, a righteous man or a godly man is going to lay up treasure for his children's children. That's like 2 generations ahead.
Yeah.
Meaning he is in his activities, he is investing. He is laying up in store treasures, whether because of the businesses he has or things of that sort, so that the children should not start from zero. And even the children's children can even meet what he has invested in.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned in passing at one point, that wealth, just hold it to yourself, is a curse. So he's saying even the children need to be trained, because when you're investing in these businesses, you are not going to become young forever. Eventually you're going to grow up. So how are you going to pass on this to your posterity, the people that will come after you? So God expects us to have continuity in the way we manage our resources. That's why he even mentions this, that even the children's children should benefit from the resources. So God expects us to save from the blessing he's given us, to give and to invest it. That's why that young, those guys, when he gave him talents, he was expecting them to invest it. He was expecting them to increase it. So it is an expectation that God has upon us. When he blesses us, whatever he blesses us with, we need to increase the little that he has given us. That one guy said, no, it's just one, I'm going to hide it. But God is saying, you're a foolish man. You're supposed to do something with that. So we should look upon it in that way, with that mindset, that God doesn't expect us just to spend everything we have. He expects us to keep, to give, and to invest.
And do you have any last advice for our viewer when it comes to building our wealth?
The last advice maybe I may give to our viewers, albeit young or old, you know, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. What that simply means is, it's now or never. You may be late that you could have planted that tree, but the best time to plant that tree is now. And there are others who feel, no, I am too young. The truth is, you're never too young to start. If we had all day, we would go through all the young entrepreneurs that the world has. And I'm sure someone listening to me right now is on Facebook. If you knew Facebook was started by Mark Zuckerberg, and he was only 19 years old when he launched that application. And now he's a billionaire. And there are many examples even in Africa that have become entrepreneurs, and they're very young. So we are never too young to start. And perhaps there's somebody even older as well. You're never too old to start. The owner of KFC started that corporation was 50-something years old. So you can't say you're too old. Nobody's too old. Even at where you are, like I said, the best time is 10 years ago, yes, but it means now or never. And lastly, with all things, I mean, with God, all things are possible. So if God makes the rain to fall upon the unjust, how much more will he bless us who are his children and make us to grow and have wealth? So that's the final advice I may leave with you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Martin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, I hope that you have been motivated and inspired to begin building your own wealth. You were with me, your host Adela Chokoto, right here on Hope Channel Malawi with your program Energ-Aid. Join me again next week. And remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you.